So using your picture reference, you want to create a light sketch of the rose. The best way to do that is to kind of just start somewhere in the center. I usually create like a basic shape first, a few basic shapes here and there. So this is kind of the larger petal right here. And then I'm just gonna draw this whole center part. And right now it's very, very light and basic. And there's also this larger petal on the outside here. I'm not trying to make it really perfect right now. And when I'm sketching this, I'm looking at lines here. So the line of this petal, where this petal meets the other one, I see that the green is coming out very close to there. And so that's where I want to start the green. So I've got this very light sketch down, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to define it a little more just because I have the proportion of the rose down. I have an idea of how big I want it to be on the paper. And so now I'm going to kind of just try to shape out, like we see, like this petal right here is bending just a little bit so we can see the inside of it. And there's ruffles on the edges. And we're not going to create every single ruffle right now, but over here it's kind of hard to see. It's bending even more out right now here. And next we've got this petal that's kind of, we've only seen the outside of it. And I'm just going to keep working in right now. I'm noticing that this edge is not perfectly straight. There's tiny little ruffles in it. And actually, I think it's just a little bit bigger. Extends out a little more this way. Folds over a little bit over here. I have a cup of 2 cups of water. One I'm going to use to rinse out my brushes and clean the paint off, and one I want to keep clean and use that to apply to my paper. The reason why you want 2 different cups is because you don't want to use the muddy paint. The one that you're cleaning your brushes off with, you don't want to use that on your painting because it could muddy your painting. Okay, so right now I'm going to get a little crimson, burnt sienna, and cadmium yellow. And I'm going to put a little of that right on my palette here. And you really don't need a whole lot. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get some clean water and I'm going to just get this petal wet here. And the reason why I want it wet first is because I want the water, I want the paint to bleed. I want it to automatically bleed as I start painting. So if we get it wet here first, it will automatically bleed as I start getting some paint. So I'm just going to grab a tiny bit of water and just place it right next to my crimson here, my red. I want to get a little of that because I want it to be pretty light. And I'm just going to start just applying it to the edges right here. And as you see, as I apply it, it starts bleeding right away. I might try this cadmium red too. I just want a tiny bit of that. But it looks very orange. I want to grab just a little of that orange and just get it in here a little bit, allowing these colors to kind of bleed into each other. I'm going to grab just a tiny bit of this yellow too. And we're just kind of putting the very basic background color down first. We will go back and kind of get all the details in after it dries. One thing you want to kind of remember and keep in mind is when this dries, it will turn lighter. So this color right now is not the exact color it will be when it dries. It will be a little bit lighter. It won't be as brilliant. Also, now I'm going to start on this other petal out here. I'm going to rinse my brush and I'm going to get the clean water and I'm just going to get this whole petal wet just like I did with the other one. And you want to follow the lines that you drew here. Otherwise, the water will bleed into areas that you don't want it. And I'm trying to be careful not to touch this other petal here right now. So I'm going to start grabbing the red again and just start adding some of these the red in certain spots. A little of that orange color and just come in on the, maybe a little yellow too, and just come in on the inside here. When you're looking this closely at an object, you start to notice the very little hints of color. And there's little tiny spots that are lighter there. So I want to keep that, and then there's some dark spots here too. Actually want to just, anytime you mess up, you can always just take your paper towel, just wipe it right off. All you have to do is just get to it while it's still wet, and it comes right off. And I decided this looks a little yellow here, so I want to add that in right here. If you notice right here, there's a light highlight here. You can always take your paper towel and just very lightly dab that spot so you can get the highlights there a little bit. It just, all it does is it removes some of the paint. What I want to do is I want to create some of the shadow here. I'm gonna try this blue just a tiny bit, and I'm going to try to add that shadow just a little bit here. And I will go back in and make that darker later. I'm gonna add just a little of the red into some of those areas I just touched on. And just adding a little water to get it to bleed a little more so the lines aren't so hard. Now I want to add a little more red just to this edge right here. Also right here to this edge as well. I'm just adding a little water so it bleeds into the rest of the painting. And I noticed that this one is much darker, so I am going to get more red here, and I'm going to try to get it. I'm going to use a little less water. I'm going to try to use more paint. And just, right now I'm just touching little spots of it. There's a good amount of water here. I think I can work on this outside because I think these two are dry at this point. So I'm going to get the edge of this one wet now. And you know what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get the edge wet for now. As you see, this has dried, so it's not bleeding into that other petal now. So as you see, it's extremely dark. This one has dried. The ones around it are dried, so I'll get some clean water, get that one wet. We're kind of working in sections here, kind of painting each petal separately. If you look at this section here, this one wasn't fully dry because it bled into where I put this water. Let's just see how this turns out. Color in some darker spots here. Just gonna try to get this pretty dark right here. Try to get some of the details inside here. I'm going to come back and I'm going to darken the edges of every rose. Get it really a lot darker right here. to get some water. Just kind of touch that and allow it to bleed into the rest of the petal. Now I'm just trying to get that back to start blending in. I'm rinsing my brush, and now I'm gonna come back and mix some of the red with that blue that I had. And what I'm gonna try to do now is I'm gonna create some of the shadows. I'm just gonna try to follow the line where the shadows are. I'm gonna just add in any other small like shadows that I see right now. So I'm going to move on to the stem. We can always come back and keep adding more details to the rose, but I'm pretty happy with it right now. So I want to get some green. And probably some yellow. And even some black too, because there's some really dark areas here. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to get some clean water and start working on every piece here. And right now I'm working on something that's kind of more in the background here. And so I want to get a little black here with this green. Get that dark. And I'm not going to go all the way because I see there's a very light highlight here too. So I'm barely just going to touch it like that. And then I'm going to get some of this yellow. And just go on the edge right here and let it touch the green here. Just kind of let them bleed into each other. Let's work on this one too. This one's really dark. With very, very little highlight just on the edge. I'm even gonna get some just direct black and just get it in right here. Just right next to the rose where it'd be kind of, there'd be a little more shadow right in that area. And even kind of just make brush strokes the direction of the leaf because it's curving. And add just a little black right here too, a line of black because it's bending right there at that spot. Rinse my brush, come back with just that yellow highlight right on the edge right here. And just let it bleed into the green. Some yellow at the very ends here. I'm going to do this highlight here. I'm going to make this, mix this yellow with the green. Get it pretty light here. I'm gonna add this dark shadow here. See if get a little of this brown that's left over here, and just get the tips of this. Just touch the tips. Right, and so pretty much we're just doing the stem now. I'm going to work my way up to give this time to dry. So I want to get more of that yellow with the green. Kind of just using up my paints here because I have some left over, but it needs a little more yellow. Just a touch of it. There we go. I'm going to get some of that black. And mix it with the green. See if we can create that shadow here. Need a little more black. Put some water in it. And get it really dark black in here. Just leave a tiny bit of white because there's a little reflection right there off the leaf. And we are done. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for watching.